When we consider Viking Age longhouses, we usually think of stuff like wooden planks, clay lined walls, inner posts, a hearth maybe, or a ship like shape. What really doesn't come to mind are windows, more precisely glass windows. Well, according to the latest research, it seems like some of these houses, at least, would have actually had them. A new study seeks to reframe our understanding of the Viking Age archaeological sites by focusing on this previously marginalized type of artifact, the glass window panes, demonstrating their potential insights into medieval Scandinavian society. Traditionally, glass from window panes has not been considered a genuine prehistoric object in Scandinavia. And usually, when we speak of Scandinavian historiography, the prehistoric time also includes the Viking Age. This new study examines glass fragments from key Viking sites, all significant trading and political centers. It investigates whether window panes were actually used in Viking Age buildings, thus contradicting the assumption that glass windows only appeared in Scandinavia with medieval churches, so around roughly 1100 AD. It uses a technique called laser ablation inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry to analyze the chemical composition of glass, dating, and provenance as well. Significant fragments were found at both early trading hubs such as Haithabu and Birka and aristocratic centers such as Tisö, Ströby, Toftegård, Uppåkra, and Sortemul. Many of these sites were political, economic, and religious power centers with monumental wooden halls, silver and gold deposits, as well as ritualistic objects. Glass fragments found at these sites challenge the assumption that the Viking Age lacked in buildings where you could find glass windows. They analyzed 61 glass fragments dating primarily between the 9th and the 11th century, and three distinct groups were discovered. Natron glass, this would be of Near Eastern origin, found at Birka and Tisö. Then we have wood ash glass of Northwestern European production, mostly in Haithabu or Hedeby, as well as wood ash lime glass. This was found at aristocratic centers such as Tisö, Uppåkra, Sortemuld, and Ströby Toftegård. The Haithabu and Birka samples contain Eastern Mediterranean glass, to be more specific, of Egyptian and Levantine origin, while other sites show more European, possibly Carolingian influences. A few concrete examples in Birka, so that would be between the 9th and the 10th century in Sweden. Over 200 fragments of window glass were recovered, many found outside a wooden building. In Tisø in Denmark, dating back to the 9th to 11th century, 5 fragments of window glass were found at an aristocratic residence, suggesting glassed windows in elite buildings. And at Sortemul and Strøby Toftegård, also in Denmark between the 9th and the 11th century, some glass fragments were found at pre-Christian cult sites, implying that buildings also involved in cultic activities, so-called temples, may have had glass windows. And interestingly, there are also fragments found in Viking graves, which also suggests they might have been used as some kind of amulet. So, were glass windows actually used in Viking Age Scandinavia? Looking at all this evidence, yes, most likely. The presence of window glass in elite Viking Age sites does suggest the use of glass windows, at least in high status wooden buildings. Aristocratic and religious sites often tended to imitate continental Christian and royal architecture, and here glass windows would have been already common by the 9th century. Some glass might have even been reused or imported for some other purpose, but there is no evidence that suggests that window glass was just waste material or later contamination. In pre Christian Scandinavia, glass might have even been a ritual or symbolic material, potentially linked to magic and power. The term Glerhimin, meaning glass sky, appears in Old Norse sagas, albeit in the Romance ones, possibly symbolizing a magical or divine barrier, or just metaphorically a very bright sky. The Saga of Eric the Red mentions a magical glass like item used by a seeress, a so called vulva, and medieval and early modern Scandinavian magical traditions, for example, Swedish and Icelandic grimoires, mention mirrors, polished surfaces, and transparent materials for divination. These later sources might have inspired the idea that glass could have been used for runic inscriptions in Viking Age magic as well. There are definitely quite a lot of imported drinking glasses and beads, but as far as I know, not inscribed with runes. That would have been challenging, although not impossible with a sharp tool. A vague reference in an older mythological poem called Hyndluljóð might hint at some vague religious nuance. It mentions stones turned into glare into glass on an altar after being smeared with sacrificial blood. Or again, it might be considered just a metaphor. At any rate, glass might have played a role in elite and cult buildings, just as it did in Frankish and Anglo Saxon palaces and churches. Furthermore, Scandinavian elites likely observed and imitated Carolingian royal halls and Christian churches which did have glass windows. Viking rulers, for example, Harald Clack, who did visit the Frankish court, would have seen the glass windows and the royal halls of Carolingian palaces with glass windows, and then Scandinavian magnates could have thought of emulating them. So it would have been a status symbol. In Roman and early medieval Europe, we do have quite a lot of sites with glass production. Pompeii and Herculaneum, for example, glass windows as early as the 1st century AD. By the 8th century, glass production was revitalized in Carolingian monasteries and royal palaces. Glassmaking was actually quite common in Christian churches, cloisters, and elite residences. Charlemagne's palace chapel at Aachen had glass windows with local glass production on site, so did the abbeys of Loches and Fulda. The Venerable Bede records that Bishop Benedict brought French glassmakers to glaze church windows in Jarrow around the year 674, and limestone molds for making H-shaped lead cames were found, confirming early use of leaded glass windows at the Abbey of Saint-Denis in France in the 9th century. So quite a lot of examples. So the study is very important because in the case of Scandinavia, before the study, window glass was only believed to appear in medieval churches, so around the year 1100. Excavations of Danish wooden churches, for example, Dube in Framlev, revealed early wood-framed windows with glass panes. On the other hand, finds from royal castles, such as Lilleborg, dating back to the 12th century, suggest continuity between Viking Age aristocratic halls and early medieval castles. So, windows were likely used in aristocratic and ritual buildings in Viking Age Scandinavia as well, so between the 9th and the 11th century. And these findings challenge the assumption that glassed windows only appeared with Christianity and church building after the year 1000. The presence of wood ash lime glass in elite residences suggests early Scandinavian rulers adopted glass technology from Carolingian and Anglo Saxon Europe, potentially as a symbol of status and power. Besides the political reason, they might have done so also because glass might have had symbolic or ritual significance. This is a little bit unclear. However, it does mean that aristocratic halls and temples were more sophisticated than previously thought. And the finds are, of course, one more piece in the vast trade and cultural exchange that was going on in the Viking Age. Scandinavia's imported glass and possibly window technology from both the Eastern Mediterranean as well as the Carolingian Empire. All right, so if you enjoyed this topic, do subscribe for much more, all things Vikings, and you can continue with this video right here about the magnificent Viking town of Ribe. This was Irina, thank you so much for watching, and till next time.